And we began to look, and the church began to analyze, how are we going to carry out this burden? Probably the first thing that would overwhelmingly come to our minds is, it's going to cost a lot of money. That's why God and the church gave the gift of giving. Some of you, listen closely, by God's design, God has made rich. God did that. You didn't.
Amen.
You could have had the most subtle illness as a child that would have completely deprived you of your health to ever accumulate the money you ever did.
Amen.
God made you rich. And his purpose for doing so was so that you could give to the church, but not that the church would hoard it and worry about a doomsday, but rather that they would employ that money, and that the people in the church who are gifted in a different way could depend upon that money reliably so that they could do what they would otherwise not be able to do without the giving of those people who are gifted in that way. It would take a lot of money. What else would it take? It would take a lot of mercy. You ever been around a kid who didn't have a dad or a mom? Sometimes they're a little rough around the edges. And it would take people who were patient. Many of those kids that are in orphanage have disabilities, learning disabilities, all other sorts of health disabilities, changing diapers at the age of 12 and 15. And do you not think that it would take somebody who is divinely gifted with the gift of compassion and mercy to serve those children? And notice what it said in the scripture, with cheerfulness. They would be cheerful in their disposition, in loving the most weak and feeble and helpless among us. Listen, I could try to muster that up, but if I'm confessing before you tonight, I am too impatient to work in a place such as that. And yet I know many of you here have the gift of mercy, that you can do things that in my natural disposition I am unable to routinely do because I am not gifted in such a way. And yet God gifted you with that. And it breaks my heart that many of you who have been given the gift of mercy have been deprived an opportunity of carrying that out in the Lord's churches because we have not looked for that opportunity to offer. What else would it take to run an orphanage? Teaching. A lot of teaching. Unique teaching. Biblical teaching. Practical teaching. All sorts of teaching. Academic teaching. We can all agree the gift of teaching would need to be there. The gift of ministry, serving people. Somebody have to build a building. Maintenance that building. Somebody have to probably have a vehicle that they could get the kids around in. Somebody have to maintenance that vehicle. A lot of areas for service there, aren't there? The gift of ruling. You'd need somebody with all the moving parts, all the children, all the staff, how it relates to the church, all the finances. Somebody would have to have the gift of managing all of those things. Here's the beautiful part of it all. God gave those gifts to us.
Amen.
The gifts to accomplish that are sitting in this room right now. They're just unemployed. '21st century manifestation of those gifts. I've got 4 minutes. If I can have 7, I'll be done. Question. As I travel around the country the last 4 years, preaching different places, not pastoring, here's the most common question at its heart that I can summarize that most people ask when you get into any conversation. It's at the very top of that section, the 21st century manifestation of those gifts. The final and most often neglected part of this topic is the application. How do missionary Baptist churches in the 21st century reach the world? Friends, it's not hopeless. Our forefathers overcame a lot more than what's standing in front of us.
Amen.
So we don't need to throw our hands up and quit. We don't need to worry even. we need to go to God and ask Him to grant us divine wisdom to do what is already available for us to do.
Amen.
The reality is that it is different for each church. Some gifts God has given in greater proportion to one church than another. That is why it is essential that a church diligently pray for a specific burden regarding the needs and demographics in their community, plead with God to lead them how best to carry out their burden, and ultimately ask God to open the hearts of those that they are attempting to reach. Now I want to go to the next page, and you'll notice that the next 3 pages go together. I started this list a couple years ago, never knowing that I was going to be using it here or anywhere really. I've got listed 82 different enterprises that the church could do to carry the gospel to the rest of the world. I want to highlight just a few of those, and then I'll be done. And here's what I want you to notice in the few things that I have highlighted. Now, you may read through these, and I would encourage you to do so. I don't find any of these, and I think if you look at them, I'm not saying we need to do all of these. What I'm saying is we need to do something. And that something is whatever God tells you and your church to do.
Amen.
I want you to notice as I read off part of this list, the diversity. Whole lot of different things, and the reason is because human beings are very different. Our personalities, our culture vary incredibly. God has gifted us in a way that we can reach different pockets of those people. I'm going to just say the number, and I'm going to read off the thing. Number 2, an orphanage. Number 3, foster care families. Number 7, post-abortion counseling centers. You know, I don't believe in abortion, but I don't believe in condemning women who have had an abortion to the point that they turn their ears away from listening to us. I want to show them love and compassion and help them from the terrible tragedy that they made when they made that decision. Pregnancy crisis centers. Number 12, translation work. Seeing Brother Doug makes me think of his son Ryan. I wish we had 50 Ryan Skinners, because we've got so many Spanish speakers in America, we would need a lot more than 50 to reach them.
Amen.
And I want to. Website design ministry for churches and missions. Number 14, mission societies. Common thing among Baptists years ago. Number 20, prison ministries. Number 23, Christian schools. Number 26, emergency response teams. 27 and 28, Dr. Collins, medical teams both domestically and internationally. Number 32, music lessons. Number 33, traveling carpenters. On the next page, number 38, a cheerful old man who drives a church van. Number 51, homeschool curriculum authors. Number 52, publishers. Number 53, for Megan Carter's sake, who edited my work, editors. Number 54, podcasts. Number 56, listen to this one, homosexual, transgender counselors.
Amen.
You know why those people do those things? Because they're broken.
Amen. Yes.
And you know, whenever they want to get out of it, we don't want them to look at the church as the enemy, do we? We want to look at the place they can find hope and redemption and love.
Amen.
Number 58, songwriters. Number 60, think of Todd Reynolds, Christian scientists. On the next page, 68, Christian authors for all ages. 73, Braillists for people who are blind. 74, sign language translators. 75 and 76, some of you may have heard of these organizations, Big Brother and Big Sister organizations. Right? People who didn't have a dad growing up having a male mentor in their life. People who didn't have a mom growing up having female mentors in their life. Before I read my conclusion, I want to point out 3 things about this list for you to think about. I don't have this written anywhere. I'm just reading this from something else I wrote. These enterprises involve ministering to broken people at the depth of their brokenness and offering the hope of Jesus Christ. Some of these ministries involve young people when they're the most impressionable that they'll ever be the rest of their life.
Amen.
Number 3, who do we impact when we do these things? In doing these things, we show Christ's love to both the beneficiaries of our actions and the onlookers of our actions. You know, many people that Christ healed, they believed in him because of what he did to them. You know the greater part? There were a lot of people watching. And often in the scriptures it says they believed on him for the signs and wonders that he performed.
Amen.
In our conclusion, and I'm done. The millennial generation is slowly but steadily drifting away from the majority of missionary Baptist churches. This drifting has already caused many of the Lord's churches to disband, and many others wondering where all the young people have gone. I do not agree with their leaving, but I understand it. I believe the contents of this lesson explain the sentiments of many in this generation who desire to serve God. At one time, many of these young men and women, felt a powerful and compelling urge from the Lord to serve him with their divinely given gifts, but failed to find a place within the Lord's church to employ them. As a result, many of them have chosen to forsake missionary Baptist churches, employ their gifts for other denominations, or use them primarily as a part of secular institutions in their employment. Simultaneously, countless souls are experiencing unimaginable torment because of the unwillingness of many missionary Baptist churches to support and encourage their members into spirit-led enterprises to seek out those that are lost. My prayer is that God's people will minister as Jesus did during his earthly ministry. He sought the downtrodden, the depressed, the anxiety-ridden, broken people in the depth of their sin and pain, ministered to their needs, and then preached the hope of the gospel.
Amen.
Let us strive in unity to continue the spirit of his ministry in the body of his church and reach the people of the world where they're at now. May God burden, lead, and enable his churches to do as he did, reach the world with the gospel. Brother Marie.